Intersections, conversations. Frustrated, angered, confused, or just plain tired of the polarizing conversations about race? Not sure what to say, what to think, or even what to do? Well, you've come to the right place. As we move beyond the rhetoric to look for solutions that reduce health disparities and create better working environments. As my grandmother would say, it has to come up to come out. Welcome to our Intersections Conversations, where diversity, equity, and inclusion meet.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into another deep dive? This time around, we've got a pretty interesting mix you shared with us. Goal setting, communication. We've even got some team building stuff in here. Looks like someone's been busy thinking about upping their leadership game.
And who are we to stop them?
Exactly. So we're looking at excerpts from this goal achievement guide you sent, some outlines for team building, and even a little taste of DEI. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion, in case you were wondering.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. But don't worry, by the end of this deep dive, you'll have some tools and aha moments to make those tough conversations a little less, well, tough. And you'll be well on your way to building a stronger team. So one of the things that really stood out to me from these 17 motivation and goal achievement exercises was how they talked about reframing goals. We tend to focus on the end game, right? Like, I want to write a book or I want to run a marathon.
Classic goals.
Right. But this source suggests thinking of your goals less like a finish line and more like an ongoing journey. What do you think about that?
You know, it's funny because it's such a subtle shift in thinking, but it can make a huge difference.
Totally. They actually use the example of weight loss. Instead of saying, I want to lose 15 pounds, what if you said, I want to have a healthier relationship with food and exercise?
It's not about a number on the scale anymore. It's about making a lifestyle change.
Exactly. You're not just checking a box. You're cultivating a habit. Yeah. And that can be way more powerful for long-term change, don't you think?
For sure.
So I want to pause here for a sec and invite everyone listening to think about a goal they're working on right now. How could you reframe it as an ongoing process? It's a good question to think about, especially as we move into the next part of our deep dive. Those tricky conversations we sometimes need to have. And speaking of journeys, sometimes we end up having these conversations and it's like walking through a minefield, right?
Been there.
Those crucial conversations that this 2544.pds source goes on about, they can feel so heavy. But there's a reason they feel so important to get right. What do you think about how they define a crucial conversation?
Well, it's not like every disagreement or difference of opinion. It's more like the stakes are high, emotions are strong, you've got different opinions flying around.
Okay, so let's say, I don't know, let's say you need to confront a coworker about something that's been bugging you, or you need to set some boundaries with a friend or a family member, maybe even dealing with conflict in a relationship, right? Those situations where things feel really important.
Absolutely. And this source, it points out 5 reasons these conversations can go sideways. No preparation, you're not communicating clearly, bad timing, you're not actually listening to understand, and our emotions are out of control.
Oof, those are a little too real sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all been there. You walk away and you just wish you could do the whole thing over.
It's so normal, but that's why having some kind of plan can make all the difference. This 25404.pdf source, it lays out this 3-step approach for getting through those conversations.
Like a toolkit.
Exactly, for those times when things get a little rough.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the first step?
Preparation. And it's not even about planning everything you want to say. It's about being clear on the real issue, thinking about how things could go, even the worst case scenarios, and knowing exactly what you want to get out of the conversation.
So it's like checking the map before a road trip. You need to know where you are, where you're headed, and what kind of detours you might run into along the way.
Precisely. That preparation is key to staying calm, especially when everyone's emotions are running high. Then, when you're actually having the conversation, the most important thing is to focus on what you can control, how you behave, and what you say.
Yeah, but sometimes that's easier said than done, isn't it?
100%. So they introduced this, I don't know what you want to call it, framework, system. It's called STATE.
Okay.
It stands for share your facts, tell your story, ask for their story, talk tentatively, and encourage testing.
Okay, got to break that down for me. What does that look like in real life?
So when we say share your facts, we're talking about sticking to objective information. Don't just jump to interpretations. Tell your story means expressing how you feel, but authentically, not blaming the other person.
Like, hey, when this happened, I felt this way. Not, you always do this.
Exactly. And then ask for their story means actually trying to see things from their point of view. This is where really listening comes in. Not just waiting your turn to talk, but trying to understand where they're coming from.
Man, that can be really difficult when you feel like you're right.
Oh, for sure. And that's where the talk tentatively part helps. This is where you present your thoughts and ideas, but just as that, your perspective, not the ultimate truth. It keeps things open for conversation and not a battle of egos.
And encourage testing, I'm guessing that's about making sure everyone's on the same page?
Yes, it's about understanding, asking questions to make sure everything is clear, and making sure everyone feels heard.
This state thing is amazing. I already feel like I can handle these kinds of conversations better. But what about actually doing something? What happens after the conversation?
You're right, a conversation without action doesn't get you very far, does it? This source really highlights ending crucial conversations with a clear plan. That might mean finding common ground, taking a vote, deciding to talk to other people, or sometimes even giving a direct order.
What matters is walking away with a feeling of knowing what's next, not being stuck in that same cycle of getting nowhere.
Exactly. So we've covered individual goals and how to have these one-on-one conversations. Now let's zoom out and think about the big picture. Making teams stronger. You know, you sent us some really cool stuff about psychological safety, which is a big part of creating a team that works well together and comes up with new ideas.
And you know, it's funny, this whole psychological safety thing, it made me think about that identity pie chart activity from the Courage to Be Me handout.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like, remember how we were talking about reframing goals as journeys? Well, this exercise, it's kind of like that, but for figuring out who we are. It's all about looking at the different parts that make us, our experiences, you know, where we come from, what we believe, what we're passionate about, even the tough stuff.
Right.
And it's not just some feel-good exercise either. It actually matters when it comes to building a strong team.
It makes a huge difference, really.
Because when you really get who you are, it helps you connect with other people.
Absolutely.
You start to see that everyone's got their own story, and those differences, they're not a bad thing. They make us stronger.
It's like by owning our own story, we can make space for other people to do the same. And when people feel like they can be themselves, share what they think, without being judged or, facing consequences, that's when the good stuff happens in a team. That's when you get real creativity, people working together, coming up with new ideas. People aren't afraid to take risks, to think differently, to support each other, even when they disagree.
That's so true. And you know what else was really interesting in what you shared? Those team building activities. That hula hoop one and the rope shaping one, they sound like so much fun. What a great way to bring all this to life.
Right. Sometimes the best way to learn about communication and teamwork isn't just by, talking about it.
You got to do it.
Exactly. You have to experience it. These exercises, they're like a safe space for people to practice those conversation skills we were talking about. They can try things, make mistakes, and learn from each other, but without the pressure.
And those light bulb moments probably hit differently when you're right there in it, huh?
Oh, for sure. It's one thing to read about clear communication or listening skills, but to actually feel it work when you're trying to figure something out together as a team.
There's nothing like it.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up here, what does all this mean for you listening? We've covered a ton. Reframing your goals, those crucial conversations, how to make your team feel safe. But if there's one thing I hope you take away, it's that you have the power to make things better in your own life and with the people around you.
It's true.
So whether you're working on something for yourself or trying to figure out how to work better with your team, remember all the things we talked about. They're here for you whenever you need them. But before we go, one last thing to think about. We always hear about disagreements, different opinions being these roadblocks. But what if we thought about them differently?
What if those differences, those moments where we disagree, what if those were actually chances to grow, to come up with something amazing? It's something to think about as you're on your own journey. And hey, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts with us on social media. Let us know what you think. Until next time.
Intersections, conversations. Talk is cheap. We have explored key issues in developing better human relations. but it means nothing if you don't do something with our conversations. Race and differences are just obstacle illusions, so do something right where you are. Well, that's it for this intersection conversation, where diversity, equity, and inclusion meet.